Welcome back. This is part 2 of the hidden connection between digestion and your hormones. And last time we focused on estrogen and how poor estrogen detox and sluggish digestion can make estrogen kind of feel out of control. But today we're going to turn and focus on cortisol. That's your body's main stress hormone. Most women tell me, I feel like my hormones are all over the place or they're out of whack, which is them describing things like mood swings, fatigue, PMS, or feeling wired and tired. That's a common one. The assumption is usually that their body is doing something wrong. It's making too much cortisol, or it's not making enough cortisol, or the system isn't working, it's broken in my body. That's typically kind of what we're designed to think. And then we go to the doctor and they fix what's broken, or they make something that's low very high, or vice versa. But often the real problem is in the digestion, which is what I look at, because how your body is utilizing the nutrients either from food or from supplements is what is going to power the detox or give the body ability to carry out the actions it needs to in order to make hormones and to use hormones and to throw them away. So the truth is, supplements and protocols will only work if the digestion piece is working. If you feel bloated, constipated, or sluggish in any way, the nutrients you need for your hormone balance may never really make it to where it's supposed to go. And then when cortisol isn't processed efficiently, it keeps your body feeling stuck in a stress mode, which of course impacts our sleep, our mood, our weight, our appetite, and our energy. So in this episode, we're going to connect the dots. I'm going to talk about how digestion affects cortisol specifically and why absorption is everything when we talk about digestion. So let's get into it. You are listening to the Holistic Hormone Podcast, and I'm your host, Eleanor Duelley. I'm a naturopathic doctor and board-certified nutritionist. Here, you'll find a place to learn, feel listened to, and truly understand your body. I follow the foundations of naturopathy, and I work with your biology so you can see what's really going on and how to support it naturally. I will validate your experiences, explain the why behind your symptoms, and share ways to improve them without relying on medications. With almost 10 years of clinical practice, I've seen incredible changes when women combine knowledge with simple, natural tools, and my goal is to help you do the same. I am not a medical doctor, and this show is only for educational purposes. I do not treat, I do not diagnose, and I do not prescribe, but I do believe that your body is designed to work beautifully when given the right support. Well, now it's time to get started with today's topic. All right, welcome back, everybody. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Eleanor Duelley. I'm a naturopathic doctor and a holistic hormone specialist, and I run a private practice in McKinney, Texas. So for those of you that are listening from afar, welcome. And if this is your first episode, I'm honored that you are listening. This is episode 65, so there are quite a few under my belt, and I use this platform to educate and to help speak my mind when it comes to understanding the biology of the body with hormones. And today we're going to talk a little bit about cortisol, because a lot of people really have an understanding, they think, of what cortisol is, or they'll nod their head and go, yes, I'm familiar with that, because that equals stress, or it equals how I manage stress, or my cortisol is out of whack, so I can't sleep. So these are all kinds of things, but I'm going to get into a little bit more specific so you have a better idea of what's going on. So the way digestion influences cortisol is, again, all about the nutrients, okay? And so if we know that our digestion is not optimal, then we know that our body's not able to utilize all of the nutrients from our food or supplements properly and to be able to apply them in the way that it's needed. So it doesn't mean we're not getting them. It doesn't mean we're not eating the right foods. It might mean that the body is not using them. So the real question is, why is the body not using them? The question is not, I should just keep eating more of those things or taking double and triple doses of the supplements. A good example of this is vitamin D. People will come, I'll look at their blood work and I'll see the vitamin D levels are very low. And I will also see on their intake that they've been taking large amounts of vitamin D every day for years. So when you look at it that way, the solution is clearly not that they're not taking enough, because they're taking exorbitant amounts. And if they were to double the amount of vitamin D that they're taking daily, it most likely wouldn't change the fact that there's a deficiency. It's because the absorption of that mineral or chemical or supplement is not happening. And my idea is to look at the why. So we're going to break down what that means. But first, let's talk specifically about what cortisol is, where it's made, and what it does. So cortisol is derived from cholesterol. Okay, so when we get our cholesterol tested, it is an indication of how abundant our hormones are or how lacking they are. If we have really low cortisol, then we're not going to have enough of the ingredients to make hormones. If our cortisol is elevated, which is common with women with fluctuating hormones, because the demand of hormones changes, the way that your body makes cholesterol changes. So we have to take that into account when we look at cholesterol. We can't just look at it by itself. Cortisol is also required to have B vitamins, especially B5 and B6. Also vitamin C and some amino acids. Where do amino acids come from? Protein. So think about when you're eating these different kinds of food. We hear everybody saying, protein, protein, protein. Oh my gosh, I need more protein. It's not just for muscles. It's for the making and creating of things in the body that need amino acids. Cortisol is one of them. Okay, we also need the combination of adequate nutrition in our diet. So healthy fats, carbohydrates, and proteins, but also the ability for the stomach to digest them. Digestion means that the body is able to break solids into liquids and to have the enzymes available to be able to use each of those macronutrients. So if the enzymes aren't there to break down fat won't break down, and it will stay in a big blob of form, and it will go all the way through your system out until you poop it out, which is why some people will see floating stool, or they'll see oily stool or mucousy stool. So if that's happening, it means something in the stomach is not present and working well. So if that happens to you, then it's time to look at, why is my body having a hard time digesting fat, and what can I do about it? These are the things that I help women with, because I always ask very specific questions about what's going in and what does it look like coming out. Because if the digestion is poor, you're not going to have as much nutrients, which means you're not going to have as much cortisol quantity. But what cortisol is made, the quality might not be that great. If I asked you to make me a cake and I gave you an egg and sugar and butter, but I gave you no flour, you could still kind of put together a cake, but it just wouldn't be very good or useful for whatever I need, in whatever the intended purpose is. So remember, you can absolutely eat foods that are high in B vitamins, or even take supplements like vitamin C and still be functionally deficient. If I can get your a peek at your blood work, I can order it through a third-party lab, through LabCorp in my business. We can see that deficiency isn't about intake, which is what I said about the vitamin D. So let's look at how the body is absorbing the nutrients so that it can make cortisol. Okay, so we're going to talk about reasons why your cortisol might be high. So just a note, I don't test cortisol in blood work. Some practitioners do, and they might use it for certain, evaluations. I personally think that because cortisol is a stress response hormone, that any stressful situation can happen and change the result. So for example, if you were getting blood work at 8 in the morning, it was the first appointment you could get and you had to fast. So you maybe missed your normal breakfast, or you missed your cup of coffee. You're a little stressed, you're running late, you're in a doctor's office you've never been in, there's people talking to you that you don't know them. Maybe there was a mix-up with the paperwork. You get to the back room and a stranger is sticking a needle in your arm, right? All of those things can create an abundance of cortisol because that hormone is helping you cope with the situation. It's helping you get through it without being overwhelmed by fear or shutting down. It's helping you to make quick decisions. It's helping you to answer questions. It's helping you to be alert when you need to be. So your cortisol is going to be running high, but it doesn't mean that that's bad. It means that you needed that amount of cortisol for what you've been through. Maybe you like getting stuck with a needle. I don't. But I know if you tested my cortisol, when a needle was stuck in my arm, because I really don't like them. Some people don't mind them. I have to look away and I have to count to 10 and I have to put mentally, I have to be on a beach somewhere because it's how I cope. So getting a blood work result back that said my cortisol is off the charts would make sense to me in that moment. But it wouldn't make sense to me to make decisions about my lifestyle and nutrition and supplements based on that moment. So I want you to kind of understand when you get blood work done from your practitioner, whether it's your GYN or your PCP, people bring in those blood work results all the time and they'll say, my cortisol is high. And then I kind of take it with a grain of salt because unless you measure cortisol over time, which is what I use when I use the Dutch testing, it's a dried urine test that you do at home. You do it multiple times a day. It will give me the peak of your cortisol for the day, which is appropriate and natural and normal. And then it shows me how you use your cortisol throughout the rest of the day. A lot of women have a drop in the afternoon. They say, I have no energy. We can look at your cortisol output at that point. So when your cortisol is high, what does it mean? Well, it could possibly mean a gut inflammation, a gut infection, whether that's you being you could have a mold infection, you could have parasites, you can have any sort of gut imbalance causes the body to be in an alert state, in a stressed state. Blood sugar instability is huge because cortisol will help save the day if your blood sugar drops too low. This is why if you've ever had low blood sugar, happened to me one time in the middle of the night because I skipped dinner, didn't feel like eating. I was just having a bad day. I went to bed, 3 o'clock in the morning. I woke up with this huge, overwhelming cortisol response, deep breath, thought I was having, a heart issue. And I immediately remembered, oh my gosh, my blood sugar dropped so low that my cortisol had to kind of pump me up, had to wake me up so that I wouldn't go into a diabetic slumber. Okay. Chronic stress. So this raises cortisol or keeps cortisol high. If you're living in a situation in a household that has mold exposure 24 hours a day, or those air fresheners that plug in, those fragrances, if you're breathing in those toxic chemicals 24 hours a day, if those toxic chemicals are on your clothing and the clothing is sitting on your body, in your towels, in your sheets, in your hair, on your skin, you are being exposed to chronic toxicity that creates inflammation, and that inflammation needs cortisol. So sometimes people will come in and we'll do the testing and I will walk through, are any of these things affecting you in your life? This also extends to, we have stressful jobs, we have stressful situations with our parents, with our kids, with our neighbors, with our spouses, with our siblings. Like, we all are exposed to different stressful situations, and how we adapt and deal with them is really on us to figure out, because our body is having a natural response to a stimulus. We can't be mad at the body for being stressed. We actually have to learn the ways in which to reduce us processing the information and the stimulus around us. This also extends to digestion inflammation. If you're having a hard time digesting your food, again, if you're having the constipation or the diarrhea or the bloating or the gas or the gurgling or the cramping, that's your body telling you food is not being utilized well, and that's stressful. Exercise is stressful for the body. When we over-exercise, we can use up our debit card of cortisol and then use it all up and then try to continue our day with thinking and making decisions and working and kids and carpools and life. And we're using a debit card that's empty. And that is what keeps cortisol low. So when we have high demand over a long period of time, we can have high cortisol for as long as the body can hang on, and then it gets to a point of complete depletion and tap out. And this is generally where people use the term adrenal fatigue, because cortisol is made by your adrenals. I don't like that term, but that's a story for another day. The output of the adrenals can reach its breaking point. So if people come to me with chronically low cortisol, we have to do a completely different rebuild than somebody that is having a high output, because usually the low, chronically low, has been long-term for a long time. So it takes a lot of repletion. We call this like a flat line. If we get the Dutch test and we just see complete flat all along, that means you don't get any cortisol spike or cortisol awakening response. You don't get one of those. That recovery is a lot more about rebuilding, renourishing, repleting, and then trying to reduce a high cortisol situation. Again, I can't reiterate enough. People come to me and say, what supplements do I need to take to fix this? And we have a whole arsenal of supplements that will support the systems in the body, but if the stimulus doesn't change, those supplements only will work for a little bit, and then they won't work at all because the stimulus hasn't changed. So I want to give you the perspective of there's not just a supplement that we check the box because you're low, we give it to you, and then we're done with our job. We need to find out why it's low. Is your body burning through it quickly? If you have high cortisol, you're burning through vitamin C and B vitamins very quickly, which means what you're taking on an average day versus a stressful day isn't going to be enough. So we also have to think about, we talked about with estrogen, the clearance and detox. Cortisol has to be detoxed as well. It does not use the pathway of methylation, which is what we saw with estrogen, but it does use detox pathways in the liver that require certain nutrients in order to break it down. The body wants to make cortisol, it comes from cholesterol, which is fat. We want to make it water soluble, and we all know oil and water don't mix. So we have to have special enzymes and chemicals available to break down cortisol to make it water soluble. So we can pee it out or we can poop it out. Okay, so if cortisol is not cleared, it hangs around, and guess what it looks like, you guys? It looks like belly fat, insulin resistance, anxiety, water retention, and the wearing away of your muscle tissue, right? We don't want that. Low cortisol hanging around looks like, or just being in a low cortisol picture is chronic fatigue, can't get out of bed, frequent illness, always catching a cold, always tired, always have low blood pressure, just really just kind of like, you're crawling along in life. Okay, neither of these options is something that we want. We want to make the appropriate amount of cortisol that meets the demands of the situation and then get rid of it, because if we don't, then it's just one step closer to us having these chronic inflammation, these chronic symptoms of not being well. So, okay, so we talked about clearance. We talked about reducing the demand. So I mentioned that we have to do the lifestyle things or the supplements won't work. So what are those lifestyle things? Let's talk a little bit about them. Some of these are obvious and we roll our eyes because they're so obvious that we're like, yeah, I'll figure that out. Or I'm doing that already, but maybe not so much. Hydration and daily bowel movements. I mean, we all want to poop every day. Sometimes it just doesn't happen for us. We can't make it happen just because we want to. So we have to put in the things that are needed, like hydration, soluble fiber, eating more vegetables. That's usually what I ask the person that's sitting in front of me telling me that they're constipated, they only go poop once or twice a week. And when they do, it's like little pebbles. I ask them first about soluble fiber. Because I'm not going to jump to a supplement that is going to help with the migrating motor complex or the bowel actually moving stool through it until we've looked at the basics. Because when we skip the basics, we don't get the result. And then we get mad at the method. So be honest with yourself. Are you eating cruciferous vegetables? This is your broccoli, your Brussels sprouts. Not everybody eats kale, I get it, but we need it to clear cortisol. Bitter foods like arugula, lemon, citrus, radishes, that will move bile. That helps with the flow. So getting stuff out of your body has to flow out of your body. We have to reduce the demand for cortisol. So balanced blood sugar, eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Yes, I know you don't like breakfast. Yes, I know you're not hungry for breakfast. Yes, I know all of the things. You still have to eat breakfast. You have to eat fats and protein and preferably carbs because that is going to help set you up for balanced blood sugar throughout the day. Intermittent fasting, how can I say this? Intermittent fasting is not for everybody. If you're coming to me because you're having issues with weight loss, with balance, with hormones, with this, with that, with other things, and you're doing intermittent fasting, let me tell you it's not working. Maybe it worked once. Maybe it worked 2 years ago when your cousin was doing it and you thought it was the greatest thing and it worked for 2 weeks. Now it's just a normal thing for you, but it's not working. That is not working for you. That is actually hindering your body's ability to have a natural rhythm of making hormones in the morning and balancing your blood sugar. Okay, we all know gentle exercising, walking, sunshine on our faces, stretching, stress relief, prayer, journaling, gratitude. And I say these like a laundry list because we all know these things. This is not new. But are we integrating them into our lives? Because the majority of us aren't. Maybe we had a routine before, but we're not really doing it anymore, or it kind of lost its, it lost its sparkle. It's kind of boring now, whatever. Then find the next thing that is going to help you regulate that. We also need nutrient repletion. Are you eating enough nutrients? I always go through what are you actually eating? Because not only is digestion important, but what you're actually choosing is important. We cannot out-supplement a bad diet. We can't just say, well, I'm taking a multivitamin, so I don't have to eat well today. That's not how it works. Those supplements don't have all of the fibers that vegetables have. They don't have all of the enzymes. They don't have all of the things that are needed to actually break that down. This is an obvious one, but sleep hygiene. A lot of women are struggling with sleep right now. And I know it's not a matter of, well, I would sleep more if my body would let me. It's practicing proper hygiene, putting away the phone, putting away the scrolling or, caffeine or alcohol after dinner. Looking at the things that trigger you to stay awake. A lot of women think that they have to go to the bathroom at 3 a.m. just because they always have. That doesn't biologically, that's not biologically how we're made. But if it has become a habit for you, then your body will continue to do it unless you break the habit. So, thinking of your stress system like a bathtub, okay? You can turn down the faucet, right? We can reduce what's filling up the tub and we can open the drain. But If that drain is clogged or we're not doing the things necessary to unblock the drain, then that cortisol is just going to stack up, and up. So just to recap, digestion isn't just about food. It is, because that is where it starts, but a lot of people overlook how the body uses it. If you remember from last episode, estrogen has a shelf life, and we have to get it out of the body post-ovulation. If we don't, then we're going to have all kinds of issues. Cortisol we use for our stress signal. Too little or too much can be damaging, and we have to learn to regulate that properly. And your hormones aren't bad or broken or wrong, or my body makes them too much or too little. Like, it's just a matter of figuring out what it is that is going on. Because most people don't have that understanding or that education. And that is how I opened the door to go, it's not actually an issue about food. It's actually insert whatever we find. We can find blood sugar imbalances, we can find inflammation, we can find digestion problems. And a lot of people don't realize that they're very much related. So I hope this was helpful for you today to kind of understand why sometimes our hormones can seem chaotic. It doesn't mean there's anything broken. We just have to understand the signals that the bodies are giving you. 100% of the time, the body is giving you a response that is an appropriate response to the stimulus. Your gut and hormones are in a constant conversation. When clearance is working, they're in harmony. When it's blocked, the symptoms start talking louder. But the good news is we can listen, and we can test, and we can support. And that's where I come in. If you want more information about how to work with me, you can always visit my website at eleanorduelley.com, and please subscribe to this podcast. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook. I hope you have a great day. See you next time. Thank you for listening to the Holistic Hormone Podcast. My goal is to give you a place where you can learn, feel heard, and understand your body in a way that empowers you to take action. If today's episode gave you a new perspective or something to think about, I'd love for you to share it with another woman who might need it. And if you're ready to explore your own health more deeply, you can learn more about my programs, resources, and upcoming events at eleanorduelley.com. Just a reminder, I am not a medical doctor. This podcast is for educational purposes only. I do not treat, diagnose, or prescribe, but I believe your body is designed to work beautifully when it has the right support. Until next time, thank you for joining me, and remember, your body was made to thrive.